All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you on a Sunday here. Yes, we are doing Sunday NBA because there is no more NFL for at least a little while, but we will fill things here for you, no problem. The NBA schedule has been like an accordion, some heavy days, some light days, and then some oddities here. Last night was just 3 games for basketball, and if you played Zion Williamson, you were ready to go to bed. I was all ready to watch some basketball and see how my teams are doing. Like, I'm in bed at halftime. So we're back at it. I'm joined by special guest Greg Ehrenberg. You guys may be familiar with some of his work. He used to do some things here around Stochastic. Welcome, Greg. We're glad to have you back here.
Yeah, and I did play DFS yesterday. It was the first time I played NBA DFS in a minute because I was gone for the weekend. Yeah, I got greeted to the second half of the NBA season where you get Zion gets hurt. There's all kinds of weird. There was the blowout in the Jazz game, which was also the Pelicans, but like the Jazz did weird things with the rotation because of that. The Pelicans have generally just been doing weird things with the rotation. I posted about it on Twitter earlier. Like all of a sudden they're like, you know what we're going to do with our non-competitive young team? Let's just start DeAndre Jordan. And that's something they've been doing. So yeah, it has been, it's been some weird NBA games lately.
Yeah, it's been something. It's been something. But we've got a fun one tonight. What do we got? I think 6, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, 6 games.
6.
Yeah, so everybody's including everything, so that makes it a little bit easier here between DraftKings and FanDuel. We'll talk about both. There's some slight pricing tweaks, but overall, most of our analysis is going to be portable. If you guys have the tools, you will be using them. Greg will be displaying them. If you want to get the tools on a discount, promo code NBA, LBL NBA. LBL NBA, 15% off. Your choice of DFS products, weekly and monthly, as well as the OddsShopper products, the Tails products. It's a good one. That's a good one. Glad you're back, though, Greg. This will be more fun. Although there was some epic shows there with Spags and Eric Lindquist. I was a little worried the FCC was going to get involved.
Was there a Puppet Lindquist appearance?
Surprisingly, I do not believe Puppet Lindquist made it, but they went beyond Puppet Lindquist. This was R-rated, no, X-rated, no. We were into NC-17 or whatever.
All right. Well, NC-17 is better than triple X-rated, so it could have been worse. By the way, shout out to Malakar for gifting out the 5 YouTube memberships. Malakar, as always, thank you for supporting the channel here. It's very, very much appreciated. But yeah, I'm going to have to scroll back through some of those shows and see exactly what went on and figure out if I'm going to be in trouble during my app.
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday was the epic one. Oh, and they're right. There was at least one puppet appearance. I remember the Jewish New York grandma voice that Spags does as Lindquist. That's Puppet Lindquist. So there we are. All right, we're collecting people, move along, capture everybody, hit that like button as we get started here, covering some of our injury updates. Portland still without Denny Avdia. He's missed like 8 of 12 in the last 3 as well, dealing with that sore back. Robert Williams not going to be playing on the back-to-back, so he's already been ruled out. We do know that Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Johnson are going to be available. That is helpful. As we move to Orlando, Beef Stew still has one more game on his suspension. So you get a moment with Paul Reed in Philadelphia. No Joel Embiid. I believe he's going to be out for at least 8 games. I didn't go look and see if that was for a particular date, but he's going to be out for at least a couple weeks here. So that opens up Andre Drummond and Adem Bona. We've got the thought was that Jason Tatum might be making an appearance tonight. If you listen to the Bill Simmons podcast, that is not going to be the case, though he has been practicing in 5v5, so he's getting closer to a return. Marvin Bagley was producing a little too much, so he is once again unavailable for Dallas. Who knows if we're going to see Cooper Flagg again? this season. They keep punting on his return date. Najee Marshall is dealing with an injury. He is unlikely to play tonight. But Caleb Martin, also a guy not really playing on back-to-backs because he will spontaneously combust. He is available tonight, as is Klay Thompson. And then P.J. Washington, similar to Najee Marshall, actually dealing with an injury. He's doubtful, so I don't think we'll see them. And then our nighttime games, we've got the late game. That is the Los Angeles Lakers. They played last night. Had the game in control. They were up by 18 at half. So they didn't really need to push anybody. LeBron is questionable. Could be an injury maintenance day. Our one worry is they may not need to play in the third or fourth quarter. Hell, they may not need to play in the third quarter either tonight, as the sacrificial Sacramento Kings are in the mix. And then who's left? Trey Murphy will be returning. So we get to see a real New Orleans Pelicans squad. DeJounte Murray is not playing on back-to-backs as he regains his conditioning from his lengthy layoff, but those guys are available tonight. Zion, questionable. I'm leaning towards he doesn't play tonight, so I will hand it back over to you. He did injure his ankle in the second quarter. They are making noise that they want to get into the play-in tournament and try to make a bit of a run since they don't have their pick this season. Do you think Zion plays? And then any thoughts you want to contribute there, since I went on a bit of a diatribe?
Sure. So a couple of key players who are on the injury report that I think are pretty likely to sit, one of them being a Zion that you just mentioned, just because he's somebody they've always been cautious with the health of. So if he leaves last night's game with an ankle injury, it stands to reason a lot of times those will swell up overnight. I think there's a pretty good chance he sits today. And then I don't know why LeBron would play today. They're at home against the Kings. They're 12-point favorites. The Kings actively try to lose every game they're in anyway. So if the Lakers sat Reeves, LeBron, and Luka, I think they'd probably still end up winning the game just because the Kings would do everything they could to end up losing the game. So it just seems like a natural spot to want to rest LeBron. So I am going to definitely be making some alterations to be making sure that I boost guys like Luka and Reeves, and then some of the other players for the Pelicans as well. But Luka and Reeves going to be the key ones, especially because that's the last game that locks of the entire slate. But yeah, that's kind of where I sit on. Also, the idea that, because I've had Pelicans fans in my mentions all day on social media saying that they want DeAndre Jordan to be playing over Derek Queen because he helps them win games. They want to get into the play-in. They're 11. I think it's 11 games behind the Clippers in the loss column with 21 games left. There's no chance that they're making the play-in game. What's really happening here is they traded their first-round pick unprotected for Derek Queen in the offseason. And front office, to save face, they want to do everything they possibly can to not have that be a top pick in what could be a generational draft. So they're trying to squeeze every win out of it to try to improve the ping pong balls just so they don't look quite as bad. But because the team is so incompetent, they think the way to improve their team's like, let's roll out a 60-year-old DeAndre Jordan who hasn't been relevant in 10 years. So they're not making the play-in game. I know that's what their intention is. It's not going to end up happening. But most importantly for you guys on this slate is, I think, try to make sure to boost a little bit of Luka and Reeves.
Okay. That is definitely the path would have been more succinct for either of us to say that from the jump, but there we go. Getting back. It's been like a month since I've done a show with you here.
Has it been that? Well, I guess it would have been one of the NFL playoff slates, right?
Yeah.
You
were big time in us on those. You were making us do the afternoon Sunday games, and then we got bounced for the Super Bowl. The all Sunday night football team, me, gets bounced for the Super Bowl every year. Shame. Let's see. Notes Z Nation TV. Is there any promos on The Sims? Why, yes, there are. That would be LBL NBA equals 15% discount. I will put that into chat there for you. And if you ever wonder, you can go down and look at the YouTube description below us. If you expand that, we've got all the links and descriptions of what we're offering for you guys. You want to check out the Hall of Fame? You can get the link right there. You want to check out what we've got for Tails or OddsShopper or anything else, it's going to be there. That's something I was showing on screen yesterday. I was shamed because I do not use the nighttime mode on YouTube. So but it's there with all of the good information. All right, we've got some guards here. You sort of hit on it. If we look at Luka Doncic, today is different than yesterday. Yesterday there was nobody within I think it was 8 and 10 fantasy points of him on DraftKings and FanDuel. Today there are 4 players that are within hailing distance of him, and it's really not that far, especially if he's not needed to go his normal allotment of minutes. If LeBron is out, then that does boost the DFS efficiency, per minute efficiency there for Luka. But how do you want to handle his salary today? And since he is our first decision point.
Yeah, so I'd given him an ROI boost, but actually, you know what I probably want to do now during the show is maybe just zero out LeBron and then give some of the necessary boosts to other guys over on the Lakers, just mostly because of when that game takes place, it being the final game on the slate, like I had referenced before, because you take LeBron off the court and it makes Luka into an entirely different player. And by the way, Luka obviously already a really strong option. So if you get into a scenario where LeBron plays and you have Luka in lineups, it's not like you're going to be saying like, fuck, I'm screwed for the slate. Like that's certainly not what is going to be your mindset if you have a lineup with Luka. You still have Luka against the Kings. You'd be like, fine, whatever. I have Luka against the Kings. But in the event that you get Luka without LeBron James, Luka this season scores 66.5 DraftKings points per 36 minutes with LeBron off the court compared to 59.5 with LeBron on the court. So you're looking at 7 additional fantasy points per 36 minutes for him. Usage rate for Luka, it goes all the way up to 42.3% with LeBron off the court this year. Austin Reeves, 30.2% usage rate with LeBron off the court, and he scores nearly 50 fantasy points per 36 minutes when he plays without LeBron. So I know you were asking me more about Luka, but also just guards in general. Luka is my favorite spend-up option on the entire slate, and he's not even all that popular. We've got him, 23% owned, I think is the number. Yeah, 22.37. So you're getting modest ownership with Luka, who I think clearly has the highest ceiling of anybody playing today.
Definitely. And I like the call out of adding a few other players to give you a little bit of flexibility as the games tick down. That's the best way to do it. Even if you were to fully boost Luka, you're cutting yourself off from some of that flexibility. So good call out on that one. Are there any discount dandies that you're seeing here at the position that are going to help facilitate getting a couple of these top tier plays in for you?
Yeah, so I'm actually rerunning the Sims right now, but I will sort by value here. And on the low end, there aren't guys that were showing up a ton for me on the last run of Sims, but one guy who was showing up, I think maybe even in more lineups than anybody, although it might not be the case now. They're making some adjustments to Luka here. But I was actually getting more exposure to Jrue Holiday than any other guard on the entire slate. $6,700. We've seen him play bigger minutes for Portland as of late. Another team, by the way, vying for a play-in spot, but more realistic to get there than a team like the Pelicans. But Jrue Holiday, who's been a good player when he's been on the court the last couple of years, dating back to when he was with the Celtics, it's easy to forget, Emac, that he was a very good fantasy producer once upon a time and then just kind of got buried a little bit by the Celtics because of how much depth they had and how many other good players they had. I mean, he was playing behind Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. You had Derek White, who played a big role in the Boston offense. You had Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench. So just kind of easy for Jrue Holiday to get lost in the sauce there, but he's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. And if you look at our projections here, here's who he compares to as other guards. The only guards on the entire slate who are better on a points per minute basis than Jrue Holiday are Tyrese Maxey, Cade Cunningham, Luka, and SGA. That's it. He's better than every other point guard eligible player as far as a points per minute projection.
Yeah, that's a good call out there. He is someone that maybe fresh legs helped a little bit in addition to the extra minutes. Plus, now that he has not had to play alongside Abdia, etc., he is getting to have a bit of a moment here, which I think is kind of interesting. Let's see, my dog is now stalking me. She knows I'm on air. She hasn't quite figured out. So I have the door open like this much. She hasn't quite figured out that she can push her way in, so she gets mad. And it's an interesting conundrum here. But now
how old is your dog now?
She just turned 1 year. So she is a jumper. She can jump on the bet, and these are high bets. Can jump on them. She'll jump from ottoman to ottoman with about a 4-foot space in between. She is just fearless, but she hasn't quite figured out how to open things yet. Thank God. But there we are. Free Millie, yes. Free Millie. All right. What fun do we have here? Oh, I just dropped into a chat there, and I'll be putting the tweet out. But special contest, this FanDuel contest I just put into the chat. You win that with the Stochastic Avatar. Tweet at me, Stochastic HOF, and you will get 1 free week of Stochastic All Access NBA. That is for you guys. Got to win it with the Stochastic Avatar. It must fill the run. It's 3 max. It's $2. Basically, I'm doubling first prize for you. And then so jump on in there. Looks like it needs about 60 people to fill. It should fill once I put this out on Twitter. Nice. Is there anybody you think is being overrepresented at this point? Someone out over their skis by the rest of the field?
Sure. And we're still just talking about the guards, correct, Emac?
Just the guards.
Okay. Yeah. So just the guards for now. And I just finished a sim run, by the way, and I just did Luka to give him 6 extra fantasy points based on some of those on-off court numbers I did before, and that got Luka into nearly all of my lineups, Emac. So yeah, I like Luka quite a bit relative to his ownership here. As far as guys who I'm getting underweight to the field to, one of them here. This is going to be a player who gets coined as a Spags Hall of Famer.
Grimes? Is it Grimes?
Per Josh Engelman. But Quentin Grimes at $4,200. He doesn't project crazy well for us. We've got Quentin Grimes. We've got projected for 22.5 fantasy points at $4,200. And it's not like he's terrible or anything like that on a points per dollar sense, but he's right around 20% owned. Here's the thing that I really do not like about him, though, is that, I mean, it would be worse if he was in one of the 6 p.m. games, but even at 8 p.m., you're using up a lineup spot on a guy who's just kind of okay on a points per dollar sense. And we have a lot of guys in the later games who could really benefit if players end up getting ruled out. So nearly 20% of Quentin Grimes, I think that's a little bit high by the field.
All right. Filling out the thought here. So Andrew Biggs says, hey, if you're boosting Luka and Reeves, how much do you want to boost them? It's less about the ROI number of the boost. It's how much you want to have going forward into the future late swap opportunities. So I would say for each of them, just to give yourself flexibility, things will develop throughout the night. There's, I talk about the Saturday surprise that in the NBA, which always happens, even on a 3-game slate. We saw it last night with that random starting lineup there for, forget who, Hinson. Is he a Pelican? Was he a Utah? I don't know, but he shouldn't have been starting. The Jazz. Now we've got Sunday originally was that, especially going against the NBA Sunday Night Football. Dumb stuff was always happening, but we get a lot more West Coast games on Sundays now. So foolishness will happen, allowing yourself to get there. So I would say going 15 to 20% above the current projected rostership for those guys gives you a chance for some of that to be earmarked to other plays, and then still keeping a strong portfolio representation for yourself. That would be the way I would approach it. Is that similar to the kind of the proportions you'd be looking at, Greg, for starting out at lock with Luka and with Reeves?
Yeah, for the Lakers guys. So also keep in mind per the question. So what I ended up doing is I zeroed out LeBron and then I actually changed the projections on those guys. That was why I was reading off some of the on-off court stats before, because I was actually looking at that to change some of the projections. So that's where I ended up getting to giving Luka 6 additional fantasy points, and I think I gave 3 additional fantasy points to Austin Reeves. As far as the lower price guys, I didn't make any changes there for now. It was more so the bigger guys that I made the alterations to. But yeah, that was what I personally did with Reeves and Luka. I changed their projections and reran the Sims.
All right. Looking at guard, seeing if there's people we haven't really hit on. There's a couple. We've got, and why is Kawhi Leonard a shooting guard? That is very hard.
One other thing I wanted to say before we moved past some of the, I don't know why Kawhi is a shooting guard today, but one value option that I did want to point out here is Javon Carter. I think has potential to play some bigger minutes for Orlando today. What do we have for his minutes projection? Yeah, we've got Javon Carter in for about 24 and a half minutes. Not the best fantasy producer, but really cheap is Javon Carter. And I think there's a little bit of extra added opportunity there because Orlando is going to be shorthanded in the backcourt. And we have seen Carter play as much as 33 minutes in recent games. So Orlando, their injury report for today, you have no Franz Wagner. Obviously, he's been out for a minute. But the big one is also no Anthony Black today. So with Anthony Black out, I think that's where we could see potentially mid to high 30s minutes for Javon Carter. So him being somebody who isn't all that popular and is going to be, yeah, I mean, we've got him. Do we have a projections update here?
We do it 5:13.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, just refreshed it. I was going to say this looks insanely low for Javon Carter. We had him for less than 1% ownership. But here, yeah, we've got Carter for 17% ownership. But still, I think that's a little bit light for a guy who could be playing mid to high 20s minutes.
All right. So we got a super chat. We'll get to that in just a sec here. I see Disco Stupendous asking, so anyone ever tried asking DK what their positionality logic is? So
Random.
For MLB, I know it's a different sport. For MLB, it was like 30 or 35% of the innings played at various positions. That's enough to get them into the multi-position eligibility. That's what it was a couple years ago. I'm assuming it's still something similar to that. For basketball, there is no rhyme or reason on a lot of this. Like if you go look at where minutes have been played, you can find this at like dunks and threes, cleaning the glass, and Pro Basketball Reference, and those things. Some of the guys like have played no minutes at the position they're listed at, which you'll hear a lot of times Josh talking about that since he's in the weeds on these, especially if someone's played zero or hardly any minutes at a position and then they don't have multi-position eligibility and they're at that position, like Vince Williams Jr. Getting power forward only. It's like, well, he's more of a backcourt player than anything else. Yet here we are. But that's the main thing there. We have a good question here that'll sort of help us transition through the guard spot here. But Anthony Hunt is asking, who are the better upside plays between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Cade Cunningham, teammate Jalen Duren, and then Tyrese Maxey?
Okay, so
3 of them are guards. So this is good. And we haven't talked a lot about those 3 guards.
All right, so let me look through my exposures. I think I made it clear the pay up option I have the most interest in overall is going to be Luka today, but not what the question is. I just wanted to make sure that I did say Luka here over those other guys you had referenced. And then also, as far as a pay up guy, I mean, SGA is 10,700, Cade's 11,000. So, Luka's in their price range, and I'd certainly prefer to get to him than those guys. But let's see. So of the other ones here, he's got SGA, Cade, Duren, or Maxey. All right. So if we're just looking at those guys, I'm most inclined to say, I don't love any of them, to be honest. If I have to pick one,
I'm leaning towards the Detroit guys slightly. Everybody's got warts, but those guys I feel get enough of the fantasy production earmarked towards them that amongst those 4 listed out there, that I would lean towards them when we consider point per dollar production.
I'll say Maxey because Embiid is out and there's going to be extra usage there, and also he's cheaper than SGA and Cade. Because to me, if I'm going up to SGA or Cade, I'm just finding the extra salary to get to Luka. It's a much bigger task to go all the way from Maxey up to Luka than you're talking about a $1,600 difference. So I'll say Maxey amongst those guys. But yeah, once again, my preference is to find the way to pay up for Luka and hope the LeBron sits.
All right. Anything else amongst the guards that you would like to call out before we make our way over towards the wings?
All right. So as far as other guards go, talked about Drew Holiday. I think Javon Carter's reasonable. He's really popular, but Brandon Williams, I think the ownership is warranted there. One other option who's not all that popular, Jeremiah Fears at $4,700. If Zion ends up sitting, Fears actually did start the second half in place of Zion, and they ended up playing smaller lineups. Now, it won't happen today because Trey Murphy is expected to be back in the mix, but it looks like Jeremiah Fears, who kind of fallen out of favor a little bit with the Pelicans, has got himself back into favor. He played well over 30 minutes yesterday. Couldn't make a shot, turned the ball over a ton, but defended well, pulled down some rebounds. So he's reasonably priced today on FanDuel and DraftKings. So Jeremiah Fears, I think, is somebody who is also reasonable to look at single-digit ownership.
Okay, that's a good point. And for those of you that were looking at the tools or anything early, and wow, we did have them up at 8:45 this morning. Fears was popping up because we did not know that Trey Murphy was going to be making his return. So that's where that shifted.
And DeJounte Murray playing also, but that one was more expected.
That one was the DeJounte Murray was baked in, but the Trey Murphy was not. So let's go over to the wings here. Let me get my filters going on. And I see we have a FanDuel super chat. We will talk FanDuel. Do not worry. I'm playing on the blue side tonight. 150 lineups out there. Well, Kawhi Leonard to me is the biggest standout option here. Jaylen Brown would be my second favorite choice amongst these. And then after that, I like Benedict Mathurin personally, even though he has been coming off the bench. He's basically playing the equivalent of what I would call starters minutes. He's getting into the low 30s most games. They're just trying to stagger him and Kawhi somewhat because that's really all they have at this point. So those would be the three wings that I would like to highlight. How are you seeing this? Do you want to splurge with a Jalen Johnson? Do you want the do everything Jaylen Brown? What is in your sights here?
Yeah, so I think this is largely because of how much of Luka I'm getting to in the backcourt. My forward options, both small forward and power forward, are gearing more towards the mid-range / cheaper end. So pretty much all my exposure is coming like the 4 to 6K range as far as the forwards go. And I don't have anybody who I'm getting to I've got guys who are right around 30%. But I don't have anybody who's more than 35% in my lineup. So there's not one real core option I look at as can't miss or anything like that at the forward spots. Another thing, too, is the options kind of suck at both power forward and small forward over on DraftKings. So if you look at the small forward spot, we've got Kawhi as a standout who've got projected to be optimal 42% of the time. So that's a really high mark on Kawhi. But beyond that, we only have one other player with small forward eligibility. That's Tristan DeSilva with more than 20% optimal rate. And then at power forward, you got DeSilva and Jeremy Grant as the only players with over a 20% optimal rate. So I do think it makes sense in general to be pretty spread out at these spots because the options are fairly thin. I don't know if there's somebody you think I'm missing, Emac, but is there anybody you look at as a small forward or power forward and you're like, oh, this guy is a tremendous option for tonight?
No. Kawhi and Mathurin are the two that I would like to make sure I have a fair amount of, but I would, unlike Reeves and Doncic, I'd be okay losing more of them as we get additional late swaps because we've got somewhat of a staggered evening tonight, but they would be the ones that I would try to push for. But to your point, if you're going in on Luka, it's getting tougher to spend on Kawhi. So it's more of a catch as catch can, to borrow an ancient phrase that I'm sure nobody has heard in the last decade. But that's my answer. A non-answer, but it's, well, if we're earmarking our resources here, you're going to kind of have to accept what comes in because there are some interesting center options tonight.
Yeah, center's pretty loaded. There's a ton of guys I like in the backcourt. There are like my favorite value option, I guess, is just Tristan DeSilva with Anthony Black out, potential for some bigger lineups, just overall some of the same reasons I like Javon Carter. I think Tristan DeSilva is viable. Also, just that small forward and power forward generally kind of sucks, like I went over. So Tristan DeSilva, like if I have to pick one value guy, he's going to be the one for me at the forward spots, but otherwise I'm like kind of spread out. My favorite value option or I should say my favorite contrarian option amongst the forwards is Toumani Camara, who has pretty consistently played big minutes for Portland and kind of all situations as of late. Up pace matchup against the Hawks. Certainly like that. The game has a 235.5 total. It's the highest on the entire slate. A little annoying that he locks in the first game overall on the slate. Would have preferred if it's a little bit later, but what are we getting? 9% ownership right now on Kamara, I think is the mark on him. So I think that he's a good lower owned option if you want to get different.
All right. See, longtime friend of the show, Malakar, is asking about Matkovich there for the Pelicans. How are you feeling about him? He's going to be coming off the bench, but with no Zion, there is a bit of a void. But we also want to remember that Yves Missy is back after missing 5 games. He played last night, so it's not that they are without options. And I didn't think that DeAndre Jordan was going to start last night, but we shall see. But that is someone I was sort of looking at. I think it's decent value, but it's what I call placeholder value. I'm not going to be sorry if I don't have it, just because there's a lot of question marks when you come to him. But he is the kind of guy that he can put together some blocks, some rebounds. He's a good shooting percentage because he mostly is there for dunks and filling the breaks. So he is someone I'd be okay with, but I would think he would fall to the wayside as I do more late swapping, would be my guess.
Yeah, I do not have Matkovich showing up in lineups for me right now. And look at our projection on him. We haven't projected for 8 fantasy points at $3,600. When anybody projects that poorly, they're just not going to show up in lineups in the Sims.
Yeah, I'm assuming we still have Zion in.
Yeah, we have Zion in, not even projected for a ton of playing time. We've got him for 28 minutes. But okay. Yeah, it's hard for me to get behind Matkovich. Even if Zion was out, I don't think Matkovich is going to look overwhelmingly great.
Yeah, so I'm looking and I'm not sharing the screen, but we've got the rotations that Josh has built out here. We like to call the popcorn machine replacement there. But if we look at Matkovich in the last 2 games, both of which were against Utah, he sort of comes in for the latter portion of the first quarter, and then he gets into the latter portion of the third quarter. It's what happens in the fourth quarter that is going to make or break him. So it can be tough to trust. Outside of those 2 games, if you reach back further, he had even sparser playing time in the 16 to 18 minute range. So it feels like a bit of a stretch tonight. 3-game slate, we have a different answer. Late, a sub slate, different answer. Showdown, different answer. But for tonight, that may be a bridge too far.
Yeah. So
I fears it's a bridge too far. See what I did there, Jeremiah? Fears.
It's funny. We've got. I knew we should answer. Zach Super Chat says he has to leave in a minute here.
Oh, sure.
But it's funny. New Orleans, we got here. Northstar saying both the Wizards and New Orleans should be investigated for tanking. The Pelicans they just suck at managing their players. They don't even have their first round pick. They are 100% doing everything they can to win. This is just what they think are the best buttons to push.
Yep. Best plays by a position on FanDuel. Love me some FanDuel here. I like Kawhi. He's popping on FanDuel. I like, we already talked about Luka. I think it's interesting to get someone like a Max Christie, someone that can get those steals in that mid-range. That's very helpful, where they're worth 3 points for steals and blocks. That's something that is very helpful for FanDuel. So quickly going, are you playing on FanDuel tonight, or do you want me to just run?
I have lineups built out, but I'm only playing on DraftKings, but I can talk about both.
All right. So don't lose sight of DeJounte Murray and Brandon Miller. They're going to be your cheaper guys. Doncic is going to be your Bucks Deluxe play. And then Cade Cunningham is going to be your differentiation play at the point guard position. If we go over to shooting guard, again, we're going to see DeJounte Murray there. Derek White becomes a little bit intriguing on the shooting guard position. Those are the 2 that are really flashing there for me. Jaylen Brown, another pivot option if you are looking to find some differentiation from the field. Mentioned Kawhi ad nauseum there. He is probably my favorite by far at this position. I'm a little nervous about steady minutes for Tamani Kamara. Sometimes they can disappear, and if he's not splashing the threes, his fantasy production does not look great. We've talked about how kind of weak that small forward position is. That just extends there. John Collins would be a super cheap guy. He's missed a couple games. He had some like a head in neck issue was not a concussion, though, but he is expected to return tonight. He is adequate, but it's more about the matchup there going against the Pelicans, and especially since Zubac is out of town. And then this kind of leads us to the center position. I really like Donovan Clingan tonight. He missed, I believe he played the last game, but I think he only played like 25 minutes or whatever. The game before, I believe he missed because he had an illness, or it was vice versa. He's had another 48 hours to recover from that. So I kind of like Clingan tonight. How are you feeling about him? And do you have any other FanDuel guys you want to add before we turn our attention to center?
Yeah, I don't think you mentioned Austin Reeves. I like Austin Reeves quite a bit over on FanDuel. Same as him over on DraftKings. But Reeves, $7,900, good positional eligibility, shooting guard, small forward. Only projected right now for 34 fantasy points. But in the event that LeBron gets ruled out, then I think Austin Reeves' projection should be close-ish to 40. Not quite 40, but you're seeing like 4 additional fantasy points for him per 36 minutes in the absence of LeBron, and no more minutes restrictions for Reeves. So he's playing north of 30 minutes. So for me, Austin Reeves is somebody I would add to the mix. And then you mentioned Clingan. Clingan's going to show up in just a ton of lineups in both FanDuel and DraftKings in the Sims. I think if you make 0 alterations to anything, last I checked, we just got a projections update, so I'll be running everything again with some of the alterations that I had made. I'll keep the ones from the Lakers, but yeah, Clingan, at least before, was showing up for me more in the Sims than any other player as far as big men go. And then as far as backcourt players goes, it was Drew Holiday when you don't make any alterations to the Sims as far as who is showing up the most.
All right. Let me get that refreshed as well. I see we do. Look at this. I'm actually looking at Discord there. We have a question in Discord. Right?
Oh, do we now? Let's hit on that then.
He is asking what should he take DeJounte Murray out of the Sims, since he believes he is not going to play more than 20-25 minutes. So that looking at, we do have Murray projected kind of in that 26.5-minute range. So it's taking that into account. His upside will have to be attainable via efficiency tonight because of they're easing him back as he's getting his sea legs after his long injury layoff. But the Sims should be factoring all of that in for you, including a range of outcomes and potential upside. So I wouldn't take him out. I could see saying, I only want to go half of whatever the field is. Just give me a little taste, give me a little something in there. And if he has a phenomenal game, go University of Washington Huskies. If he has a phenomenal game, then great. You may have the lineup that breaks free, but I wouldn't take somebody out that the Sims is giving us at around a 15% range. That's like a neutral number, it's kind of that 15 to 17% range, but maybe you cut them in half. Do you have a different way of approaching that?
Yeah, I wouldn't make any changes before the slate starts, especially because Zion's questionable. If Zion's ruled out, then that is going to make projections look better for Murray. For Murphy, probably not going to be playable for Murphy anyway, just because he's going to be playing some limited minutes. But Sadiq Bey, he was somebody who would end up looking better. So as far as DeJounte Murray goes, here's why I don't want to make any changes to him is in the event that Zion gets ruled out, he's going to end up projecting better and you're going to want to have him. But the other side of this too is that because of when he starts, I'd feel differently if his game was at 6 p.m. Eastern time, but because it's a later game, number one, I think he's fine as an option. But if Zion plays and doing some late swaps, I like the flexibility it gives me by him being a later starting time.
Fair enough. That's a good call out, because if you've got the stochastic tools and you're not late swapping or at least running the late swap at every opportunity, you're leaving opportunity on the table. And that's something where you don't have to make changes. Like last night's 3-game slate, I was running it for the late ones and like 3% of my lineups were changing. I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to worry about that. 3 out of 100 and 2 out of 50 between my DraftKings and my FanDuel stuff. I didn't go change it because everything was kind of locked in. But you always want to see what there is. Has something changed? Did you miss a piece of news that all of a sudden somebody's going to lose 4 or 5 fantasy points? You may not have noticed it, but that's going to dramatically take them out of the Sims or lessen their portfolio percentage as you're building out your 50 or 150 lineup. So I would keep using the Sims. Keep using the Sims at every opportunity. The late swap is phenomenal.
No disagreement here. No disagreement here. By the way, for people saying like Scoot not expected to start. He's not somebody who starts.
Let's see. Anything else you want to call out on centers here? Pivot positions. Any power forwards that may have snuck through that we didn't mention?
Sure. So a couple of lower owned guys that I think make sense. One of them being Andre Drummond. Fairly washed, but opportunity for bigger playing time with Joel Embiid out. You never know what they're going to do with their starting lineup. Sometimes they go to Bona. Sometimes they go to Drummond. But I do think that Drummond is sensible. And then another guy who had some exposure my lineups to and rerunning the Sims right now, but at least before I was getting some exposure to him, was Dominic Barlow. Somebody who has center eligibility, power forward, and getting to him probably more in the power forward spot than the center spot, but just one other guy to shout out, but also extra opportunity for him in the absence of Joel Embiid. So those are a couple of guys who I think could benefit in the front court for Philadelphia that we should be getting some exposure to.
All right, 1,000 people watching. I just dropped that FanDuel contest link back into the chat. Need about 25 more entries in there. You win first with the stochastic avatar. I'm going to get you a full week of NBA Sims. Tweet at me, tweet at Stochastic Hall of Fame, and I will make that happen. You can also rep that avatar in any contest. I mean, why wouldn't you? They look pretty nifty there. But if you finish top 3 in any contest, must be first, second, or third, not a 50-way tie for first. You guys know the drill. You can earn a variety of Sims, bonus Sims, full access Sims. Each level you go up, each win you get within a calendar year does improve your lot there. So check that out. That is the Stochastic Hall of Fame. I will drop the link to all the rules and instructions there in chat in just a moment. But the easiest way, jump in that FanDuel contest there. You only got to beat out 100 entries, and 3 of them are mine. Look at that. That's 3 people. Easy. I'm helping pay the rake. There. All right. Oh, thank you, Stephen Leibowitz. Must be 5,000 or more on the regular contest. 5,000 entries or more. That's why the 100 one is a special, just for you guys when I want to show. We have 16 minutes to go. Oh, I see the magic word there. Kuminga. So with Johnson back in the fold here, are you considering Kuminga?
Just letting you know, we just got another projections update
Perfect.
too.
Now I'm going to kick off my stuff here.
One more time here. So keep in mind that Jalen Johnson is back now for the Atlanta Hawks. So look at what our projection is on Kuminga now. So with Jalen Johnson back, we have Kuminga projected to play 23 minutes. And Kuminga's a good fantasy producer, but he's expensive now. So you have to have Kuminga just go completely nuts in these minutes. Like you need nearly you need like Jokic level projections or per minute projections for Kuminga in this kind of playing time. There's just no way that Jalen Johnson being back won't cut into Kuminga's playing time as well as his usage. So it's hard for me to really want to get behind Kuminga now that Jalen Johnson is back in the mix, because unless we think that Jalen Johnson is going to take a haircut in playing time here, like Arcathelza says Kuminga is going to play 30 minutes off. He hasn't played 30 minutes yet for the Hawks. So he's going to see more minutes now that Jalen Johnson's back. I'm skeptical of that. There's less playing time available. He hasn't played 30 minutes yet for Atlanta. So hard for me to get behind him.
All right. And then there was a question. Did we look at centers on DK? Yes, we did. It's mostly Donovan Clingan at this point. He is on around 60% of all lineups. And then there's a smattering of people coming in with that multi-positional eligibility, coming in the various forward spots, the utility spots, etc. But it's really Clingan at this point. There are many intriguing fantasy point per dollar plays there. Drummond with Embiid out, assuming he gets the start. Dominic Barlow, as Greg mentioned there before, and then Wendell Carter Jr., Isaiah Hartenstein, etc. Those guys come in with decent fantasy point per dollars. And that's one way just to sort, in addition to, is something being missed? The Sims and the tools are going to pick something up. But you might see a name there. You're like, oh, I forgot about that. I want to get a little bit of that in my lineups. That's where I'm going to make a stand. sorting by the fantasy point per dollar column is very helpful. Oh,
yeah.
Do you have a nuke?
Oh,
I never do the nukes on the weekends because that's Lindy's things. But you're in the video, so. Okay.
Easy one for me. Easy one, Emac. I've got 90% exposure to Luka Doncic right now. He is modestly owned at 20%. I do not think LeBron James is going to play today. I want to be jamming Luka. Great matchup against the Kings. Certainly going to be some blowout risk, but that's also why I think LeBron doesn't end up playing today. So I think Luka is pretty clearly the best pay up option on the slate, and it looks like the field is just kind of expecting LeBron to play.
All right, I can completely stand by that one. Let me just put in my lineups here and see who is coming up. Looking at my DraftKings, I'm going 4x the field on DeJounte Murray. I do not think that is going to hold, but at 5,900, he's kind of intriguing there. But for me, my nuke is going to be Kawhi Leonard. Yes, he is fairly represented on both sides, but I think he is in a fine spot here to push for 50 fantasy points. And that is his median projection. He has taken on a much bigger scoring role. He's rebounding well. He's still getting the defensive stats, and he doesn't really have help aside from Benedict Mathurin. I'm going to go with Kawhi Leonard with an asterisk towards Benedict Mathurin as the other guy. I want to make sure I'm above the field.
All right. Do I have Benedict Mathurin? I've got some Benedict Mathurin lineups, not a ton, but yeah, I agree with you. I think Kawhi, very reasonable spend up option. I would probably have more of them if I didn't have as much Luka as I do. But yeah, I think Kawhi certainly reasonable, especially because of the positional scarcity. We've got a handful of questions in the Discord that have come in to us as well. Master PJ wants to know, what about Saddiq Bey for today? I'm overweight to the field to Saddiq Bey. Saddiq Bey, we've got projected for 9% ownership. I've got 20% of them, so I'm 2x the field. So I think Saddiq Bey makes sense, especially if Zion doesn't end up playing, so I could get behind that. Then we got the Black Mamba, says thoughts on Silva and Matkovic if Zion sits. I assume he just means Tristan da Silva. Yeah, I think Tristan da Silva is a good value option at $4,100, mostly because of how much small forward and power forward sucks for today. Matkovic is a much more difficult one for me to get behind. We talked about that situation earlier, Emac and I did, but he's projected for single-digit fantasy points for us. And, keep in mind all of the other guys who are in the mix right now for the Pelicans, because you've got Trey Murphy coming back. You've got DeJounte Murray back after he sat yesterday. So even if Zion sits, it's hard for me to think there's more than like 16 minutes for Matkovic, who isn't a very good fantasy producer.
All right. And then they were asking, which Carter did you like? It's Javon Carter, not Devin Carter, not the Sacramento Carter, who is a risk at a DNP, especially with Russell Westbrook back and the team tanking.
Oh, boy, for anybody who's playing the PGA slate, Shane Lowry, I looked at this like 10 minutes ago. He had a 3-stroke lead, and now he's 2 strokes back out of the lead. I don't know what the hell happened there, but yeah, Shane Lowry. I saw people in chat like, Shane Lowry, easy money. And I was like, I guess Lowry ended up holding on to win, but apparently totally fell apart. Interesting, but neither here nor there. I'm going to have to look into that in 10 minutes when we finish up here. Omega.
That's like the Amen Corner meltdown by...
yeah, I'll have to look to see what happened there. Omega 2K1 says, for single entry contests with less than 1,000 entries, should I still focus on ROI in the Sims or raw points? Still ROI, just run the Sims with less lineups. If it's 1,000 entry contest, run it with 1,000 entries.
All right, I'm kicking off my FanDuel. Surprise! I had 60% of Caleb Martin. That's not the early game. So let me check. Okay, good. I have a feeling that's going to shuffle around somewhat. that was how I'm getting to all the Luka and Kawhi.
Okay.
Putting that out there. Do it. Don't be like me.
Some other questions here from Discord, Emac. Our guy Einstein wants to know thoughts on Niederhauser. So there's a lot of good options at center, and while he's shown to be an okay fantasy producer, he's still somebody who's sub 1 fantasy point per minute as a big man. And on top of it as well, he hasn't been playing a ton. So it's hard to get behind him. 14 minutes in our projections today, less than a fantasy point per minute. So he doesn't really look all that good. I'd much rather be playing, like Klingon or Drummond. If I'm gonna go on the cheaper end, it's Drummond or Barlow for me.
All right. It sounds like a hockey name.
Yeah, it does a little bit because it's one of those. I wonder where he's from, but yeah, Yannick Conan Niederhauser. Let's see. Where is he from?
There's a hockey player named Niederreiter, something like that.
I mean, it's definitely one of those Eastern European sounding names. He is, he's from Switzerland. Doesn't look like he's from Switzerland, but that is where he's from. But yeah, not for me today. And then Cream wants to know Keita or Vooch. Neither of them for me. That looks like it's just going to be a timeshare going forward, and a timeshare that kind of leans like right down. I mean, like no real lean. They've just been splitting minutes. Vooch has also had much less usage on Boston than what he had with Chicago. I don't know about you, Emac. I don't really like Keita or Vooch for today.
Not a fan of either. I would go with Keita, especially on FanDuel, but that's really it. And it's for blocks, the 3 points on blocks. But yeah, I don't really like either. There's too many other fantasy point per dollar guys. Mm-hmm. That said, I do have 37% of Keita on FanDuel, which is about 12 points above the field.
Yeah.
So, but that's saving money because I've got 70% Reed, 60% Doncic, 60% Kawhi. So,
and here is a super chat from our guy Sam Van Dam 420. He has $4,700 left for a forward, but he does not want to play Tristan da Silva tonight, Emac. So let's keep that in mind. He wants to know somebody with forward eligibility, $4,700 or less, but not Tristan da Silva. Okay, let me look here. Let's see who fits that bill. Going through what I have, who would I play? So this is dependent on, so this is going to be dependent on Zion sitting, but if Zion sits, Herb Jones at $4,500, I think that's somebody who's a reasonable click at single digit ownership, Sam. Not a bad pivot off of Da Silva.
Just to full transparency, Neemias Keita is coming up in probably half of my top 50 ROI lineups on FanDuel. So,
okay.
I was not expecting to be playing him, but that is something that is, and I don't usually do more tweaking of DraftKings than I do FanDuel because I want one site to be kind of just the Sims or mostly the Sims. But that is a bit of a surprise there. I'm guessing it's the 3 points for blocks.
All right. Yeah. I'd have to rerun the FanDuel lineup, see what I got over there. But yeah, on DraftKings, he was like a last man and he was in a couple of lineups, but nothing really all that significant. But let's see. What is our projection on him on FanDuel? Yeah, he's one thing that really does benefit him. He's very cheap on FanDuel at just $4,200 as compared to $5,100 over on DraftKings. So he's certainly more serviceable looking over on the FanDuel side of things. But yeah, overall, my favorite center play on both sides is going to be Klingon.
All righty. I actually have all my lineups in.
Look at you.
That's a shock. I see we've made it. We're getting spam for ESPN links.
Yeah, I've never seen that on NBA shows before. It was common always during our NFL shows, but I've never seen the spam bots show up for NBA. So maybe
I wonder if it's some program sitting out there that it's Sunday. That must be sports. This channel's on. We're gonna spam it.
Yeah, it's an unwelcome addition. Usually, I take all the viewers we could get, but not the spam bots. Let's see. Yeah, no
Stephen
other.
Drayton says needs how to understand late swap properly. There is a lot of tools out there, including some videos done by Greg Ehrenberg. And if you are a stochastic member, you can get into the stochastic Discord, and there are people that will talk to you as it's happening. Right? It's sort of like, hey, here's what, we'll say, hey, I did the late swap. Here's what changed for me. And we don't all get the same answers because a lot of times we, may have made a stand earlier than that somebody else didn't, and those players have already locked. But it's a good way to talk through it.
Let's see. We've got, by the way, I just threw a video into the YouTube chat on late swap that I had made. And then Morgan wants to know best 5,100 utility. Let's see. Who is that for me? Well, it should end up being Kada now. All right. So 5,100. Who do I like the most? It is Max Christie for me. Max Christie is the guy. Yeah, Max Christie. I also think that DeAndre Ayton at 3% ownership is somebody else who you could consider in that price range if there's no LeBron today. He's been absolutely atrociously terrible, DeAndre Ayton, which if you've followed the course of his career is not a massive surprise how this season has ended up going. I know there's a lot of people who have been believers of DeAndre Ayton, but if you remember, he was asked coming into the league, what do you consider a success for your career? And he said getting a second contract, which there you go. All of his hopes and dreams have come true, and good for him. He's made a shit ton of money. But as far as NBA is gone, he's gotten a little bit underwhelming. But if LeBron doesn't end up playing at $4,900 and 3% ownership, I think that's a viable contrarian option. But Morgan, my number one option to answer your question, it is Max Christie.
All right, 2 minutes to go. I'm going to drop a link to a tweet into chat here. This is about Yahoo. We'll talk about that as soon as lock hits, but I want to mention that. But we'll see if anything else pops. Any other questions coming in? I think Ayton's minutes have not been good. That's the understatement. Ayton's attitude, his effort,
his play, all that's been bad. His press conferences are dog. Like everything's been bad. But I mean,
and this isn't piling on. There's nothing new with it. He came in and he would have been a great alley-oop dunk guy for Luka, like we saw with Gafford and Lively. But he thinks he is more than that, and that's not the way this team is built. He's got 3 high usage players he's playing with.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just relative to ownership and the opportunity. Good matchup against the Kings as well. But yeah, 3% owned Ayton. I have about 10% if I'm heading into lock.
Yeah, he's a guy that I'm beyond frustrated with, because I thought I thought he would get into step into line with this team, and it's not happening. And it did for a couple of weeks, but it's not happening. So there we are. About 40 seconds left here. Give me a charge, right? Isn't that what the live before lock nuke says? Give me a charge here.
I was trying to figure out. What's funny is I've never actually, because a little bit of inside baseball for you guys. What I do, because the animation runs for like 25, 30 seconds. Let's see, how long is it actually? Maybe a little bit longer than that. Yeah, 35 seconds. As soon as I press that button, what I immediately do is I just use that time to upload my lineup. So I never actually listen to it. And I just kind of I know what the sounds sound like, and I know when it's almost over, but I don't actually know what it says.
Well, I listen to it in the background because I'm busy doing stuff, so I'm not watching it. But there's that uncomfortable silence where I always wonder, did we lose the feed? What happened to the show?
Yeah, I always have my fingers crossed. I just have my fingers crossed, like, oh, finally they took out Eric, and you just hope, and then he comes back on screen.
Oi, we are at lock. Congratulations, everybody. So that I dropped that link to my tweet into chat. For those of you that are not aware, Yahoo DFS is putting out 1099s this year for the first time. If you like that tweet, if you retweet it, one, let's give awareness to everybody, because you had to self-report previously. I know a lot of people probably weren't doing that, but I was doing that. And this year I found out in our chat, in our Discord, that they are putting out 1099s. The challenge, what it's going to cause for most people, and Yahoo is not wrong for doing this, but they're treating it like WG earnings, or which would be gambling earnings. They're only taking your winnings against the entry of that lineup only, and they're netting it. Any other lineups that you had, any other entries that you had, if you didn't win, they're not counting those. They're not netting that out. So if you are doing this as professional or filing on Schedule C, you'll be able to itemize back into your net number. If you're not, it's going to be a bear to do it. There's not really a good way to do it on Schedule A. So we're getting some pressure on them. This is a grassroots movement. I don't know that they're going to change, but if you guys could just retweet that or like that, it's very helpful, because what it's going to do is it's going to overstate your income to the IRS. And it's a headache. You'll be able to do it. You'll have to do volley back and forth of multiple letters, etc. I've been in this situation before with the IRS, but it's a pain in the ass. So we want it to be done like DraftKings, FanDuel, Underdog, pretty much everybody else. There we go.
Yeah, I haven't played on Yahoo in a couple of years. So there you go. Emac, you try to play on these little sites, and look where it got you in the long run.
But the secret site was dollar bills, y'all. It's a nice little ROI there, just futzing around.
Yeah, that is massively. I didn't realize that was happening. That is massively annoying.
Yeah. So there we go. Just because normally, I mean, we would have been filing right now because we have all our stuff, but I would have then had to do an amended return and all sorts of other stuff. So I am not a tax professional. Don't dupe me. Don't sue me. There we go. I've never been on lulls. So unlike Greg, who's famous.
Do you want to end on that? Just don't sue me.
I think we end on that.